call this public hearing to order. My name is Ed Lewis. I'm the President Pro Tem and a member of the Community Development Committee. I'll be chairing the hearing tonight. I will make it known that we do have another meeting at 6:30, so if we have not concluded this meeting by that time, we will have to recess to our other meeting and pick this back up during the next meeting session. The subject of this public hearing is ordinance number 176-2022, which would change the zoning classification of the properties known as parcel number 680121 and parcel number 680731, 1.939 acres located at 1900 Wales Road, Northeast, Massillon, Ohio, from R3, one family residential, to D3, general business district. The purpose of the rezoning is to allow for commercial development on November 9, 2022. The Planning Commission did not give its recommendation for the rezoning. City Council will now consider and vote on the matter. This is an opportunity for the public to make their opinion known on the issue. It is not a dialogue or a question and answer session. The chairman may use his discretion in asking a city official for clarification on any issue. Notice of this public hearing was published in the Independent on December 29, 2022, as required by law. For the record, we have the following council members in attendance.
Creamer. Present. Gray.
Here.
Howard Smith. Here. Hernkane.
Here.
Lewis.
Present.
Lombardi.
Here.
Sloots.
Here.
Sneed.
Here.
And Violi. Here. Roll call of 9 present.
We also have the following city officials in attendance.
Oh, I'm sorry. Law Director Justin Richard.
Present.
Assistant Law Director Edmund Mack.
Present.
Is there anyone else from administration that I missed? President Eisnick.
Present.
That's it, President Pro Tem.
Thank you. At this point, we will give anyone who wants to speak an opportunity to do so. We ask that you come to the microphone, state your name and address, and then make any comments you'd like. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of the proposed change? Please state your name and sign the sheet that is up there.
My name is Kara Dodson. I'm an attorney representing the St. John's Church in this matter. You want me to sign the sheet too? Before or afterwards? Oh, okay. So, as the President Pro Tem has already explained, this is basically a request for St. John's Church to rezone approximately 2 acres of the northernmost portion of its property in order to make it a B3 business zone from an R3 residential zone. It is located on the corner of Hills and Dales in Wales, which is a busy intersection, and as will be demonstrated through our other witnesses of this hearing, public necessity, general welfare, and good zoning practices require the approval of this general zone change in order for the church to make any economically viable use of this property. At this time, I'd like to have Pastor John Carpenter come forward and read a statement on behalf of the 2 pastors of the church.
Thank you. I would like to, if it may be okay, to pass these out, the statement. I guess as mentioned, my name is John Carpenter, Associate Pastor at St. John Lutheran Church, 1900 Wales Road. I will be speaking, but also on behalf of John Taloni, Senior Pastor at St. John Lutheran Church. Dear council members, St. John Lutheran Church has attempted to sell the northern parcel of our property for the last 20 years since we do not need the land for our ministry. The burden for maintenance is costly, not only in terms of dollars, but of man hours. We have had nothing but potential commercial buyers for that parcel. We have never had a serious offer from any enterprise working in the area of residential properties. To us at St. John, the land to the immediate north of our building and playground is obviously commercial. This has been backed up by numerous consultants from our international church body and realtors and other property assessors. Thus, it is obvious to anyone looking at this land impartially that our north property is not economically viable for residential development. The trend to our immediate north and northeast has been commercial development for many years now, and that would certainly be true with our present north parcel. We believe that if we are allowed to sell that parcel to a proper commercial enterprise, our building and playground would serve as a strong buffer between our neighbors to the west and south for when we plan to be on our present property for years to come. This will ensure that the buffer will be long-lasting and compatible with our neighbors in terms of proper decor and use. We have tried to be good neighbors to those around us by allowing the use of our picnic pavilion and playground and fellowship hall for use by nearby neighbors and citizens of our community. Neighbor children have used our playground and our basketball court through the years. Several resident groups, including Springhaven, have had their meetings in our fellowship hall and a picnic using our pavilion at no charge. We petitioned the city to allow us to obtain the economic value of the northern parcel in view of its realistic commercial value to the properties of the north and east. Our humble hope is that the revenue realized from such a sale will allow us not only to maintain and upgrade our building, but also allow more staffing for a strong gospel ministry in this community and beyond for many years to come. The mission statement that was approved last year is one we take seriously and will be strongly pursuing in the months and years to come, which is restoring broken people to life in Christ. This is what St. John is all about as a confessional Lutheran congregation committed to proclaiming and spreading the saving gospel of Jesus Christ. Thank you for allowing us to speak and state our position sincerely. John Taloni, Senior Pastor, and John Carpenter, Associate Pastor, St. John Lutheran Church. Thank you.
At this time, the church would also like to present the opinion of two experts in this area. One was unable to attend today, so I do have an affidavit from her that I'm going to read, that I'm going to pass around as well. And then I also...
Here's the original.
Yeah, you can do that. In addition to the realtor expert, we also have Dan Miller, who is an MIA and SRA designated appraiser, who will provide his opinion as well. On behalf of Julie Rarick, who is a realtor in approximately 20 years of experience, Ms. Rarick states that she has reviewed the application and reviewed and visually inspected the church property for the purposes of forming an opinion as to whether or not the church property is economically viable or has economic viability under any of the residential zoning classifications of the City of Massillon, including without limitation the present R3 zoning classification. She's been a licensed realtor in the state of Ohio since 2005, materially involved with the sale and or purchase of numerous residential properties in Stark County, Ohio. Based upon her review of the application and the residential classifications and her visual inspection of the church property, she is of the opinion that the church property has no economic viability and or is not economically viable under any of the residential classifications. The church property cannot be successfully marketed, sold, and or developed under any of the residential classifications. At this time, I'd like to invite forward Dan Miller, MIA, NAI, to provide some additional clarification based on his review of the property and his expertise as an appraiser.
Just point of order.
You can speak when you're in favor or against, but until then they have.
I just had a question. Will there be alternating speakers? Is there a limit to the number of speakers or witnesses that can be called?
There is none.
Okay.
My name is Dan Miller. I am a professional real estate appraiser. I've been appraising real estate for 30 years. In my outline, you have my curriculum vitae, along with some background information on the appraisal industry. I have, of my 30 years, I have 25 years experience regarding analyzing potential diminution value for properties. What I did, the work that I did was basically two-pronged for the church. Is number one, is I did an analysis, is this property economically viable as residential use? And that is on my page 1. This is just, again, an outline. And I look at 2 items regarding the property, the church property in that northern section. Is number 1, I look at the characteristics of that property. That property has a higher traffic count, being on main roads, higher visibility, and higher exposure that is conducive for commercial development. Residential use is basically conducive for lower traffic count, lower exposure, lower visibility, privacy, and those are features of residential use. When I analyze it again from a physical characteristic standpoint, the subject property is not economically viable for residential use. Then I also did an analysis of the marketing times over the years for the property. As you can see, test 2, the property was listed from July 22nd, 2016 to April 21st, 2018. It was marketed as a 2.5 to 3 acre parcel. It was on the market for 1 year and 9 months. The second time it was listed separately, beginning April 1, 2019, up until February 4th, 2021. That was based off of the 6.96 acres. That was on the market for 1 year and 10 months. The cumulative market time, exposure time on the market was 43 months, which equates to 3 years and a little over 3.5 years. During that time frame, there were no offers and inquiries made for residential use. Based on that 2-test analysis, my conclusion is the subject is not viable for economically viable residential use. And I think probably the bigger item on that is test 2 is, again, it's on the market for over 3.5 years. There's no interest or demand for residential use. My part 2, my second analysis had to deal is there going to be any diminution in market value due to a zoning change to commercial? Typically, when I take on these engagements, I do an analysis, and the analysis is there are 10 categories of detrimental conditions for real estate. I put those out. I identify which one this may pertain to. That's on your page 3. Page 3 is detrimental condition number 5. It's an external condition issue. It has to do with neighbor issues. So we've identified that. And then from that, again, I do this in a systematic framework. We can focus on the matters at hand and not be all over the place regarding any type of different types of potential detrimental conditions. Page 5 in my analysis, you can see I give common examples where we have external conditions that there may be a diminution in value. Airports, prisons, cell phone towers, power plants, sewer treatment plants, high power transmission lines and towers, landfills, sand and gravel facilities, and major pipelines. Common issues where you have a potential for detrimental conditions, diminution in value, are noise issues, odor issues, as you can see down the line, proximity, privacy, visual sight issues, view diminution, environmental air quality, long-term construction, hazard, low flight pattern, and increased traffic. All of those I do not see applicable for the subject property being zoned to commercial. I then also included on page 6 a traffic study done by ODOT over the years regarding the average daily traffic count in 2 areas in the neighborhood. One is on Wales Avenue between the 2 Spring Havens, and you can see the traffic count down there since 2012, and then you see one on Hills and Dales Road from 2013 up to 2021. The traffic count on Wales Road reached its peak in 2015 to 2017, about 28,000 cars a day. In 2019 and 2021, it ranged from almost 18,000 to about 20,000. That is anticipated to be constant. Again, we have development in that immediate area. It's all filled. Any type of commercial development on that 1.5 to 2 acre property, I do not see where you're going to see an increase in traffic flow measurably. What would be developed there is not going to be some type of destination type of property or anything like that, based on the characteristics, the size of the dimensions. And then finally, I have a map for you guys, which is basically where that traffic study for ODOT occurred. I identify the property in red, and then I identify with X is where the true traffic counts is. So again, the scale of potential development there is not going to do anything on the traffic meaningfully and increasing.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. So, it is the church's position, as we have demonstrated with the testimony of the two expert witnesses, is that the corner as it is, as its residential classification, has essentially no economic viability and no use to the church at all. And as also Mr. Miller confirmed that the rezoning will not have any appreciable impact on the values of the neighboring properties. The church is a longstanding citizen of this community and hopes to continue to be such in the future. We would ask that in making its decision that the council consider the church's significant need for this change. As indicated by Mr. Miller, the granting of this zone change request will have little to no impact on the neighboring properties. However, the denial of this request will have a devastating impact on St. John's Church in that it will not be able to continue to maintain its building and continue its ministry. For those reasons, we would ask that the council grant the zone change request. Thank you.
Anyone else in favor of the proposed changes? All right, seeing no one else who wants to speak in favor, I will ask anyone who would like to speak against the proposed change to please come forward.
Good evening, my name is Kevin Coffey. My wife Margaret and I live at 1776 Spring Haven Circle Northeast. Massillon, our backyard goes directly into the church property. And here we are again. This has been attempted on more than one occasion. Council has wisely declined to approve the zoning change. The Planning Commission, which council appoints to study such issues and offer a recommendation, unanimously declined to approve the zoning change or to recommend approval of the zoning change. As far as the information that was just presented, I'm not a real estate agent. I live with a real estate agent, a residential real estate agent, for the past 24 years. I think I could hear her chuckling inside when the statement was made that commercial development next door to residential properties do not cause a decline in residential property values. That's common sense. As far as the traffic statistics that were just quoted, those are meaningless now. You have Wales Road going to 3 lanes. You have an automatic increase of traffic because of the increased volume that those extra lanes are going to provide. The church property in question, an entrance and exit from that property would have to be within 100 yards of the Wales and Hills and Dales intersection. As people who live there, we know how busy that intersection gets in the morning, on weekends, and rush hour. You're just going to be lining up cars more and more. Just with the Wales work alone, we have to sit and wait sometimes 10, 15 minutes to get out of our street. The residents in the area have valid reasons for opposing this zoning change. We don't want the increased traffic, which would occur with the widening of Wales. We don't want the lights. Right now, we sit on our back decks and could almost read by the lights for Progressive Chevrolet, which is even further away than the church property. I don't know a lot about maintenance costs as well that were cited. But we've had friendly conversations with the man who mows the church property. Very nice man, and we have no problems with the church itself. But the man mows the whole property in about 2 hours. I don't know what the exceedingly high maintenance costs would be for that. This is a direct impact on those of us who live in the area. This impacts the sanctity of the neighborhood, leaving our neighborhood, coming home at night to the neighborhood, lights. We don't know what kind of business is going in there, but I'm assuming there will be pole lights. Well, that church building isn't very high, and our backyards are on the other side. So we're going to see that. Council has been wise in the past to say no to this rezoning request. Nothing's changed. This is just a smaller parcel. It's part of the same property that has been included in other requests. It was a bad idea then, it's a bad idea now. It's nothing that we have against the church. It's what we have in favor of our homes and our neighborhood. We have no problems with the church as it is. They're good neighbors. More traffic isn't going to help our neighborhood. More noise isn't going to help our neighborhood. More lights at night aren't going to help our neighborhood. We've demonstrated time and again that this, I'm not up here by myself expressing an isolated opinion. This is the majority opinion of most people living around that church. You can see them here. You've seen them at planning commission meetings and past city council meetings and public hearings. And it's always the same concerns. What about us? We're not at that property on Sunday mornings. We're not at that property if a business goes in there from 8 in the morning till 11 at night. We're at that property 24 hours a day. And our kids are there and our grandkids. So any impact on that neighborhood is going to impact all of us. We appreciate what council has done in the past. But I encourage you to listen to the recommendation of the commission that you appointed to study these issues. And that during a hearing before that commission, every single member of that commission that was there recommended against this zoning change. This is not something that we take frivolously. We don't like having to come in here year after year to express the same concerns because a segment of the church population, not all, but a segment, doesn't understand the meaning of the word no. We have to come back and fight. And if it wasn't important to us, we wouldn't show up time and again to express our opinions and to encourage you to listen to those opinions. It's important to us. It's where we live. We're there all the time. We don't just come in the morning and leave at night. It's important to us. I hope it's important to you. And I urge City Council to say no to this request. I thank you again for your time and for the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Randy Lamp. My wife and I live at 1256 Lenox Avenue Northeast. We've lived there for about 28 years now, I think. I grew up in Massillon, second 100 block of Wales Road, actually, and I watched all the old homes on Lincoln Way East go into apartments and then into commercial properties and turn into check cashing places and loop stops and little malls, fast food restaurants. And for anybody to say that those types of things don't impact a residential neighborhood, I watched it growing up as a kid, and as an adult, I know for a fact that it does impact the neighborhoods. I've worked tirelessly on our old house to make it our home, and I would like to keep the neighborhood the way it is. My neighbors and friends have been fighting this for years. I think it's been 20 years now. And I use the word fight, but that's probably not the right word to use, because that would suggest that we're fighting against the church. That isn't even the case. We are fighting for our neighborhood. Simple as that. Whatever you do with this property, if it goes commercial, none of us here has control over what's going to go in there or what's going to be there 10 years from now. Commercial business as a whole are a dynamic thing, constantly changing, constantly moving, tearing down things and putting something up something else. And that's exactly what will happen here, and it will just kind of spread. The church, where the church sits now, that will be next. We saw that last year. This idea, this notion of that corner property morphed into a 400-car parking lot for sales. That's the kind of control that we won't have once it's switched over to commercial. I would ask that you join me and the vast majority of my neighbors in saying no to this proposal. And we appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Kazera Perry, administration, council members. My name is Jeff Thornberry, and my wife and I, Adrian, reside at 1315 Lenox Avenue Northeast. And I thank you very much for the opportunity to share some thoughts with you. We have been here multiple times concerning this issue of rezoning the property owned by St. John's Lutheran Church from residential to business. And I very much appreciate Randy and Kevin and the things that they have said, and reiterate as well that we have no animosity to the church per se whatsoever. We have thwarted attempts, however, for this property to become a drugstore, an office complex, a strip shopping area, car dealership, etc. And it is our most fervent desire to thwart this latest attempt of rezoning. The city uses zoning to protect the neighborhoods, and we're asking you to protect our neighborhood. My wife and I have recently invested a large sum of money in our property, having a new roof installed and replaced all of our windows. We're asking for the protection for our investment. We do not want any further business development or commercial development to negatively impact our neighborhood as this investment we have made in our property. Obviously, our opinion differs from that of the church and the party, whoever that might be, that wants to develop this property for business purposes. It also differs from those in other parts of town who support this plan. They do not live here. We do. We will be the ones negatively affected. I'm fully aware that you're hearing me, and I appreciate that very much, but are you listening? I hope that you are listening. I'm asking to not approve the rezoning of this property. The immediate effect is one thing, but the future effect could be even more injurious once this property is rezoned. Any say in the future of the property, as Randy has said, will for all intents and purposes disappear. And a number of things have been enumerated as to negative effects to a neighborhood when there's commercial development. The light is one aspect. Just drive out there at night and see the searchlights mounted on the building across the street from our street, which is directed directly at us. More of that would be the outcome of this type of development. There would be more traffic. Yeah, it's a commercial development. How can there not be more commercial or more traffic involved in that? We do not want this property rezoned for anything under any circumstances. There is not one positive thing that can result for our neighborhood as a result of the rezoning of this property. If you want to make Massillon better, protect its neighborhoods. And I thank you very much for this opportunity to speak.
Good evening. My name's Norm Woods. I live across the street from church, and it goes without saying, I'm against this rezoning. So I won't go into all the things that everybody else has already said. But at the last meeting at the church, I asked one of the church members, what were they going to put in that little small parcel of land? And they said they didn't know, and it was open to anybody that wants it. Well, I feel everybody knows who wants that small parcel of land, and it's nothing more than a way to get their foot in the door. Once they get a little opening, we'll be right back here again, and they'll say we want more, and what's the difference? We always have this. So it's just a way to get their foot in the door. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Don Carlson. I live at 1834 Coventry. We are literally a block away from this. I have two major concerns with some of what's been said here tonight. One, I don't feel that if this property is rezoned commercial, that the zoning will prevent a lighting issue. I have a picture here to share with the council and the committee. This was taken out of my back window through the trees of lighting that currently meets, apparently, local zoning. Take a look at this and ask yourself, do you want this shining from, literally, it's almost 2 blocks away, through the back of your house? And then imagine how it would be to be on Wales and have this lighting coming directly at you. The same picture twice, so you can send it both ways. So that's my first concern. I'm not sure that there's enough control, as others have said, as to what will go in here and how it will be presented. But I also have another concern. The appraisers talked about some traffic studies. Talked about, in, I believe it was 2016, we had 28,000 cars. The road's under improvement. We all know that's going to change the flow. But then he brought up traffic studies from 20 and 21 and said this would be the future expectation. My question to everybody here would be, what was happening in 2020 and 2021? Everybody was staying home. The cars weren't as busy, the roads weren't as busy. So to project that in another 2 years, when we're hopefully through this health issue that we've been fighting the last few years, do we really believe that traffic is not going to increase again just as more and more people are going out? Even tonight, I noticed we still have a few people wearing masks, so we're not through it yet. So the questions do become, what is best for the community? As everybody else has said, I am certainly not against the church. Local churches are the backbone of much of our community, much of our country. But when you look at the overall picture for the neighborhood and the people it will directly impact, changing this to commercial makes no sense. It's already extremely difficult to come out to the end of Lenox and get out any time of day, let alone, say, between 4 and 6 and try to get out. And other streets have shared the same. We actually currently have to detour a block or two in order to get easily out to get on the hills and dales to head towards the mall area, because traffic is so heavy that for a couple blocks, turning onto Wales is almost impossible. As somebody else said, you can wait 10 minutes until you get a break in traffic now. Add another 5,000 or 10,000 cars a day, getting back up to that 28,000. What happens then? I just have to ask that, and I hope that everybody here will consider that as you consider the future of that property. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Good evening. My name is Michael Durant, and my wife Jane and I live at 1760 Spring Haven. Our property abuts the St. John's property. First of all, I'd like to see a show of hands of everyone here that is against the rezoning. So, year after year, this is the kind of support we we brought here to show you how we feel. I really can't express my feelings any better than my neighbors, Mr. Coffey and Mr. Lamp. I agree with everything they said, but you're familiar with that intersection, how congested it is now, how much traffic there is now, and it's just going to get worse and worse. I'm just all for keeping that a green space. I don't want to see any more blacktop surfaces near our neighborhood. And as the previous people have spoken, this isn't anti-church. The church has been good neighbors to us all these years. This is for the neighborhoods. And I don't know if there's any way, maybe they could offer it to the city, you know, to make a small park there, a neighborhood park, some benches and trees. I mean, that would be one solution, but I would just like to say the same, and thank you for letting me speak.
Hi, my name is Danielle Matheny, and my husband Richard. We live at 1930 Coventry Road Northeast, and I can already see the lights in our backyard from the surrounding businesses. We have the emergency room on one side, and we can see all the others, so I really don't want to see any more bright lights from my backyard. We've been there 2.5 years, love our neighborhood. We moved there during COVID. We already have heavier traffic coming down our street from the construction on Wales Road, more garbage, more things like that, so I would like it to stay the same and not be turned to commercial. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sandra Butler. I live at 1324 Springhaven Circle Northeast. I'm going to make this very brief. Everybody's pretty much said it here. I don't think that we should rezone this because of the forever damage that it will do to two premier, and there aren't that many, I'm sorry, there aren't that many premier neighborhoods in Massillon, but to two premier neighborhoods in Massillon. It's not fair to do that to people that have spent hundreds and thousands of dollars on their homes.
My name is Patricia Scully. I'm representing my husband, Leo. We both say no to rezoning St. John's Church.
Hi, I'm Kathy Fatagati. I live at 1248 Providence Road, Northeast. I wrote it down so I don't forget what I want to say, but basically if you grant the rezoning, it's clear that we can't go back. And what we're really talking about here, I know we're talking specifically about a little parcel, but we're really talking about all parcels. And that was even discussed at, I don't know how many meetings ago. So what we're looking at, and I know Progressive is extremely interested, so we're looking at a parking lot of cars with lights. It goes to as far as Lenox, it's going to go as far as Providence. That's a huge footprint of real estate. We know businesses come and go. We know car businesses come and go. Look at Holland, was it Holland Car, Pontiac that used to be on Hills and Dales? They're gone. So that's a huge footprint of real estate if something, God forbid, would happen and they would go out of business. So the lighting that everyone's talking about, hate to beat a dead horse. I have a very bad picture, but this is the intersection of Coventry and Lenox that stretches. Progressive has the lights right on the very eastern border, goes across the parcel, across Wales, encompasses at least 5 houses where that picture was taken and goes beyond. And as my neighbor was saying, he lives on Coventry. He's 2 houses behind Wales, and 3 houses down from Lennox, and it shines into his dining room in the back. That's just that little tiny section of land. Now it's going to get developed. Now we're going to have more lights. It's only going to get worse. How can it get better? And traffic also, yes, I've been there 30 years. I can tell you, it's not as easy to get out onto Wales as it used to be. Yes, we have a lot more people cutting through our neighborhood because they don't want to deal with the light at Wales. So, one thing I was thinking, prior to rezoning, couldn't council come up with some kind of ordinance citywide where there's some kind of limitation on the type of structure you build? Like, think Packaway Funeral Home. Their structure does not, it blends into the neighborhood. It doesn't look offensive. A parking lot filled with cars and lights is offensive. And it's ugly. I don't care what they say they're going to do. They're not going to do it. So that's one thought I had prior to even considering any of the rezoning, and this could be citywide. Think about 4th Street, historic 4th Street. If they had never turned that into multifamily, look at the gem you would have had in Massillon with all those beautiful homes. And now it's, multifamily. It changes. It changes the value. So thinking with forethought, instead of for what the immediate need is right now or what you want immediately, if you have forethought into what's in the future, what your consequences for the decision is going to be, then maybe it will help shape the way you think about this parcel of land. So what else do I want to say? I'm hesitant to even go here, but I'm going to. So after the last meeting, or at the rec center, after the meeting, the secretary of the church came up to speak to me. I don't know why. And she proceeds to tell me about how they had sued the city. And I don't remember if she said they settled, or they postponed it, or came to some agreement. But anyway, she was under the impression that this meeting would make it a done deal. That they were told at the next meeting, you have to wait however many months, it will pass. That was very concerning to me. It may have been an assumption on her part, I don't know, but I felt the need that I need to communicate it to you and to all my neighbors, because that's just wrong. I mean, it just sounds like someone is going to make sure there's enough votes. And that was very concerning to me. I had to mention it. I hope I didn't offend anyone, but I had to put it out there. So, thank you.
Attorney Richard, would you please respond to that?
Hello. President Pro Tem, council members, citizens, I'm your law director, Justin Richard. There was, in fact, absolutely zero understanding, deals, preference. There was nothing given, not at the attempt of the church's attorneys. They certainly tried, but we said absolutely not. We were confident in our argument. We were pretty sure we were going to win, so we had no reason to deal against ourselves, and we did not. At the appropriate time, I can't speak to what their attorney told the congregation, but I do know that council received a letter that was from the treasurer. He identified himself as the treasurer for the church. And he also, in that letter, put a lot of mistruths or misunderstandings, very similar to what you said, if not even worse. None of it's true, so even their own membership were either, you can take one or two things from it, they were either believing that or at least pushing that narrative. It's not true. We would never encumber the democratic process. Each one of those votes are autonomous, and certainly nothing untoward was done as far as the residents or the church for that matter. It was a fair fight, and they looked at their argument and they decided to voluntarily dismiss the lawsuit. When they looked at what we had going on, our arguments, they said, well, let's go back and reroute. And I'm sure that that's what they did. They pitched it to their parishioners in whatever sense, and they've rallied the troops now, and they've come back and trying to have another bite at the apple, a third one now, third or fourth. But certainly, the city law department stands with the city and you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to offend anyone.
You were not. I'm glad that we got that. I'm glad that, like I said, there were some things.
Anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to the proposed change?
My name is Ron Milbrook, and my wife Karen and my daughter and I live at 1792 Spring Haven Circle. My backyard runs right directly into the church parking lot. And when I built this home 31 years ago, one of the reasons I chose the property was because it went into the church. And I thought, an ideal thing, no commercial, no nothing. And now I've been to, I don't know how many meetings, they keep bringing this up over and over again. And one person says, oh, you gotta wait a year to bring it up again. About 3 months ago, we were at a meeting at the zoning commission, and they told us a year before anybody could bring it up again. And then we get a letter saying that there's this meeting tonight. Is there ever any final thing that you can just say, okay, this is it, this is not going to be rezoned, it's over? And I appreciate it. Thank you.
My name is David Schultz. I live at 1221 Providence Northeast with my wife Jane. We moved here 42 years ago in 1980. We specifically chose that neighborhood over any of the township houses we looked at because we wanted to live in Massillon where I ran a business. That neighborhood is framed by Providence and Lenox Streets. It's known as Chestnut Hill. It's a historic neighborhood. When I moved there, it was heavily professional people. Many of those are gone now, but the people who are there now are very committed to maintaining the historic nature of that neighborhood, and it is one of the nicest neighborhoods in Massillon. And we want to continue to have a neighborhood like that because that's where professional and other people can move when they come here. Otherwise, we're going to be a city of low-income housing. And that's part of the motivation to keeping a historic neighborhood like that intact. And I agree with everything the fellows before me said, that any commercial development is going to cause a real devaluation of those properties. Thanks.
Seeing no one else who wants to speak against the change, I will ask if there are any comments from members of council. Mr. Lombardi.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. This property, of course, is in Ward 1, and I represent Ward 1, and as you can see, an overwhelming majority of citizens in that area are against this zoning. I don't think I have spoken yet face-to-face with anybody who is for the zoning, or on the phone for that matter, but I have spoken with almost all of these people. And I agree, it would be tragic for that neighborhood. The one thing that was brought up that is one of my biggest contentions was ingress and egress to that property. There at that intersection, that close to that intersection is already overwhelmed, and that's going to make it even worse. And that's not only a neighborhood issue, but it's also other people traveling up and down Wales and Hills and Dales. The other thing is, the lighting aspect. You all saw the effects of the lighting from Progressive, and I've been trying to handle complaints about that for over a year now. This is, it is a quality of life issue. It's not only traffic, it's noise, it's safety, and there's a serenity to that neighborhood and a lot of our neighborhoods that I don't believe these people should have to be putting up with being upset. These people have purchased their homes, and a lot of them are established residents for many years, and they've taken quite good care of their neighborhood, and I believe that we should, as a council, we need to back these people up. Thank you.
Councilman Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I just want to express my thanks to everybody that came in tonight, took the time out of their lives and their schedules to bring their thoughts forward on both sides of the issue. I think we all know government works when people participate, so thank you for coming.
Councilwoman Harvey Smith.
Hi, I've looked at this intersection, and back in 21, when the issue came up before, and a lot of these same people were here, and I appreciate hearing both sides and looking at both issues. And a lot of the complaint, that's coming from Springhaven was, they wanted to see the baseball field. They wanted to see the church. They liked the green space. When I look at this, that green space is still going to be there backing their properties. This is a 6-acre property. They're just taking the little corner. And when you look at the air view, when you go look at it, I really don't think it's a burden on them. As far as the lighting issue, maybe something can be done with that, because we've done that with other businesses where they can direct the lights so it's not being obnoxious to people at night. But when I look at that very corner, it's commercial to me. And there's no business that can go in there without our approval. And many businesses, they may want to buy it, and they won't be able to pass a traffic study. But in the same respect, I think the church has a right to sell their property and do what they want with it. I mean, they're staying there, it's just the corner. And if it is Progressive that's interested, I don't know if they are, or anyone else, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I want economic development for this city. They're one of our biggest tax revenues. Over $1 million comes in taxes, comes to Stark County and to Massillon from Progressive. We have all these little businesses. Very little money comes from them. We run on taxes, and we need economic development. We may not pass and allow anything, one side might not like it, but overall, I'm going to vote yes, because I think this corner, it's just the corner, and I don't really think it's going to have an impact on traffic. That's all I have to say. And I know it's difficult, and I feel both ways, so really it's a tough decision, but I think I'm voting yes.
I can say that I have been part of this debate 3 or 4 times now. And it is apparent that every one of you on both sides of this argument are getting much better at your arguments every time. We do appreciate it. As Ms. Harvey Smith stated, it started off with, I'd like to see grass, to now traffic studies, lighting studies, impact over history and whatnot, and we appreciate that. I will say that the one thing I have always based my opinion on is citizens, and the impact on those citizens has always weighed heavy for me. I do tend to agree that neighborhoods are vital. I do like to see commercial development, but not necessarily at the expense of our citizens and residents who make this city great. For whatever reason, while this was all going on, and I don't mean to get too preachy, even though I guess this might be somewhat appropriate, I am remembered of Paul's letter to the Corinthians when he says, abiding these, faith, hope, and charity. And charity can be taken as love and goodwill to one another, and we definitely have a situation in which we have a church in the neighborhood that I hope can somehow carve out a charity amongst one another and figure out an answer and a solution. Because obviously the church finds themselves in a situation in which property could be unloaded to the benefit of their congregations, but the neighborhood is arguing for the survival of theirs. I continue to look at this, and Pastor, I do apologize, but I see your mission statement as restoring broken people. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. Where I do have a challenge to my heart is, do we restore as we break others? And I believe that this proposed change would be breaking the spirit of a neighborhood. And that would not be a proper sacrifice by my judgment. So I will continue to stand where I have for the past 3 times, and I will not be able to support this. However, I do hope that we are able to come together as a community and find a resolution that will give a benefit everyone. Any other members of council? Councilman Viola.
Yeah, just briefly, and maybe I'm misinformed, but I've kind of heard through this whole thing that, you know, this is necessary for the church to keep its doors open or something along those lines. I don't know, like, what the books of the church are like at this point, but, I mean, how much longer is this going to buy them? Is this going to prop it up? Are there other issues going on? I'm just not clear on, you know, the financial state of the church versus this sale keeping them going. What's the long-term plan? Is there something else going on that we don't know about? Like, is it, you know, not enough money coming into church? What's happening? You know, at this point, I'm a no on this as well. But that was just something that, and maybe the church can reach out to me and, you know, say, hey, we do have this plan, we're going to invest, and somehow we're going to create, you know, more money to keep it open after the sale. But at this point, it seems like a Band-Aid to me. So that's all. Thanks.
All right, in the interest of time, if any other council members do want to speak, we'll get a chance to when we resume at approximately probably around 7:10 after our 7 o'clock, which is after our 6:30. Mr. Lombardi, this is in your ward, and by my script, I have to ask you, do you have any closing comments?
No, I think I've made myself clear. I'm standing behind the residents of the neighborhoods.
Thank you. This ordinance is on Council's February 6, 2023 agenda for the required 3rd reading, and a vote will be taken regarding its passage. The public hearing is concluded.